Some Leonard Skinner, Call Me the Breeze, and Lord Jeffrey Archer, I insist on calling him that, is in studio.
This is Good Morning Mumbai, and you're with Hrishi K.
Radio 1.
It's not often that I have somebody called Lord Jeffrey Archer in studio. Welcome back to India. How does
Thank
it feel?
you.
And you brought the English weather with you,
I
haven't
brought
you?
the English weather with me and the English cricket team as well.
Now, that is got to be my opening question. Prominent characters of Mightier Than the Sword love their cricket.
Yes.
And are you a Somerset man?
I'm a Somerset boy and born and bred, and I adore my cricket, and it is terrible to see England playing so badly.
Yeah, but I must confess that in the past, Ian Botham, Viv Richards, Sonny Gavaskar, they've all been I've been fans of theirs. I've admired their cricket, and they are all Somerset players.
They are all great Somerset players. You're quite right. You're quite right.
Mightier Than the Sword.
Yep.
Now, for those who haven't read other editions of the Clifton Chronicles, this is book number 5, right? Yeah.
Yes, the Clifton Chronicles is going to be 7 books in all. Doesn't matter which one you read. They're individual books in their own right. If you want to start at number 1, only time will tell. That's where you should start. But the 5th one is out this week in India. The last one, as I'm sure you know, Ricky, was number 1 for 12 weeks, which is why I'm back in India.
And it already says number 1 bestseller. I've got to say this. This was a wonderful read for me over the weekend.
Thank you very much indeed.
Here's Harry Clifton and Emma Clifton, who are an ideal couple. And then the villains come along.
We love the villains.
We love the villains. And your villains, must confess, are more interesting than the heroes could ever be.
My wife always thinks that villains are more interesting than heroes. In every book, whatever book you read, if you whatever genre, they're easier to depict, they're easier to hate, and you may be right. Harry and Emma are a wonderful couple. They're based on myself and my wife. They're a wonderful couple. But Sir Hugo and Virginia are pretty wicked.
Yeah. And of course, you've got Sloane thrown in there, who heads a bank. These are all prominent characters in Mightier Than the Sword, which is Jeffrey Archer's latest one. Yeah.
Adrian Sloane is a thoroughly nasty piece of work, runs a bank and is trying to bring my hero down, but he'll get his ovens down.
And there are also young Turks, like Sebastian Clifton, for example. Shades of you there when you were younger?
No, my son.
Your son?
I'm Harry. My wife is Emma. And there are shades of my son James in Sebastian, the banker, the man who's fallen in love with the beautiful American.
And has he fallen in love with the beautiful American? And does it meet with your approval?
No, he's married a very nice Welsh girl, the real boy. Yes.
More conversation with Jeffrey Archer. It's the Pretenders, Brass and Pocket. Give us a couple of minutes and we're back. The Pretenders, Brass and Pocket. I like my life. I like my life. The fact that last night I'm with an Englishman called Ed Sheeran, the young chap who's strumming a guitar and playing some great music at the Mahalakshmi Racecourse. And here this morning is another Englishman, another legend, Jeffrey Archer. Okay, you're traveling. You're here in Mumbai, then you go to Pune, then you go to Bangalore, then you go to Hyderabad, you go to Kolkata, and tonight at 7 o'clock, you're at the Crossword in Kemp's Corner. Yeah?
Yes, I hope some of your listeners will come and hit. Where is that? Kemp's
Corner, Crossword the bookstore.
Crossword in Kemp's Corner.
Yeah.
I hope you'll come and see me there. What time am I there?
You're there at 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
So go mob him. Go mob
me.
Politics. Is it a complete no-no? Have you just decided you're never going to go back to the House of Commons or the House of Lords?
I'm in the House of Lords now.
You are already? Okay. Which is actually like a retirement program.
Yes, it is. I'm 74. No, I'm 74 and I'd rather write them. I'm loving writing the books. The Clifton Chronicles, as you know, the last book was number 1 for 12 weeks in India. So I love writing the books. And politics for a 74-year-old. I know in India that's not uncommon.
You're young.
And you still elect your leaders. But in the West now, we're electing our leaders at 40, 45. I'm not sure it's a good thing. I'm not sure you haven't got it right. But we 74-year-olds are thought to be past it.
Well, let me put it this way. You were rumored to be close to Margaret Thatcher and to John Major. What do you think of those people, and what do you think of the current regime, the current Prime Minister?
Well, I had the privilege of working for Margaret Thatcher for 11 years and for John Major for 7 years. Two very different people, but they are two great Prime Ministers, and it was a privilege to work for them. and the world has moved on. And you've got to let the world move on. You've got to let the next generation take its place. And we now have a whole new raft of politicians running Great Britain, as you do in India. You've just recently, in the last couple of years, thrown out the old and brought in the new.
And I cannot help but noticing that in Mightier Than the Sword, there is a character who refuses to be part of the House of Lords. And he says, I will go back and I will contest from the Bristol Docklands.
Yes.
Don't retire me.
Well, it's because the realistic truth is that the House of Commons is where the power is. The House of Lords, not quite as bad as you described it, an old pensioner.
No, I didn't
but it's not where the power is. If you really want to wield power and run the country, you have to sit in the House of Commons.
Don't you miss the pace?
Miss the pace? Do I look like someone who's missing the pace?
But Lord Jeffrey Archer, I mean, come on, politics for so many years. I mean, is there other moments when you say, I could still be in office?
Well, I love politics, and I'm looking forward to the election. But the honest answer to your question is 270 million people buying the books. It's very thrilling for a human being to experience that. I'm not going to give up the writing to have a few shouts in the House of Commons.
And you can't do both together?
No. I think it's if you want to be number one, if you want to be the one they all read, I think or you want to be Prime Minister, you can't do both.
There's a lesson in it for us. Pictures of Jeffrey Archer coming up at HRISHIKOI on Twitter and Facebook.com/radio1.mom. This is a great moment. Savor it. Do you have any reactions to the interview or any questions?
Come in. Talk to me. Get rid of this awful interviewer. Talk to me.
I'm stuck on you till 10 o'clock, Jeffrey. Messages and back. First Kiss by Kid Rock. Jeffrey Archer's in studio.
This is Good Morning Mumbai, and you're with Hrishi K.
Radio 1.
Okay, the questions have already started rolling in. Radhika Rani Sen Gupta says, coincidentally just finished Mightier Than the Sword, and what a cliffhanger. When will book 6 come out?
Almost exactly a year today. Or the 7 books in all in the Clifton Chronicles, following the life of Harry Clifton and Emma Barrington and Giles Barrington and the Wicked Virginia. They will come out. This is number 5, so there's 4 before them and there's 2 to come, and the next one will be out a year today.
Next question. E-books. Does it matter, Jeffrey Archer, whether the words are on paper or on a device?
Well, I much prefer the book. I much prefer having and holding a book. In England, this will shock you because I've heard the figures in India today. In England, e-books are 50% of the market. In India, they're only 1%. And I think this is because Indians really do love real books.
Divya Nangya, Mr. Archer, where can I meet you and get my copies personally autographed? I can answer that for you.
Please.
Tonight at 7 p.m., Crossword Kemp's Corner. That's where he's going to be.
I will be there giving a talk and signing books, so please come and see me.
He might even give you a peck on the cheek free.
If you're very beautiful, yes, not you, not a chance for you, you're out.
I'm out. I brought on his favorites list today because I woke him up early in the morning and I got him here.
Quite right. Wasn't early, actually. I was up at 5.
Okay, here's my question to you. The short story format, as opposed to writing chronicles or the large story, which do you enjoy more?
Well, I have to confess, short stories are easier because you can correct them so much more quickly. The longer format is more fulfilling and more worthwhile, and if I manage to do these 7 novels, it'll probably be the biggest achievement of my life to have done a sequence from 1920 right the way through to the present time. Hell of a challenge, and the biggest challenge of my life. And I took it on at the age of 70. I started book 1, and now book 5. I'm 74 years old, and I'm heading off to the last 2. And I hope I signed about 35.
Let's talk about the wind beneath your wings, which is your wife. You did write a wonderful essay, a blog, an article, which I read, talking about your illness and how she helped you recoup. And there's lots more to her, which is why you're a firm advocate of women running our lives and running countries.
Well, I think in this country, I am very impressed by the next generation of women. The young people I'm speaking to at lectures and in universities, It's the women who are asking the tougher questions. It's the women who are clearly working very hard and are very ambitious. And I think you'll see in 10 or 20 years' time a mass movement. In our own country, of course, we had Margaret Thatcher as our Prime Minister, and you've had a woman Prime Minister as well. And this is the way the world is going, in my view. In reference to my own wife, a very remarkable woman. She taught at Oxford, and then she taught at Cambridge. Then she became chairman of the great Cambridge University Hospital, Addenbrooke's, and the Queen made her a dame. She's now Dame Mary. And she's recently, the Prime Minister has appointed her chairman of the Science Museum in Great Britain, which has 5,200,000 visitors a year. So she's got a really big job. So I'm used to capable women.
No wonder she's actually grabbed your attention for years and years and years.
She's a very remarkable woman.
Lovely.
And we've been married 49 years.
Wonderful.
50 years next year.
Wonderful. Shaggy, strength of a woman on that note. More Jeffrey Archer after this. It's 9:33. Strength of a woman, Shaggy. Lord Jeffrey Archer just shown me a picture of his wife in her 20s. Move over, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Oh, God. Breathtakingly beautiful. No wonder you fell hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, I never had a chance.
Ashwin Mushan, you can tell young Lord Archer that no matter how many books he's written, Cain and Abel is still a cracker of a story. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing that people, wherever you go, in whatever corner of the globe, will tell you about Cain and Abel. So many years after you've written it.
It's 35 years. It's coming up in England to its 98th edition. It's going to be a big celebration for the 100th edition. We were going to set a competition to see if there's anyone living who's done 100 editions, and we think To Kill a Mockingbird has done 100 editions, and we think we're the only two alive who will have done 100 editions.
Amazing. Vinitha, please ask Jeffrey Archer to talk about his Reader's Digest Challenge. It is one the listeners will enjoy. I want to hear it again too.
I was asked by the Reader's Digest, they said, if you're a storyteller, Jeffrey, give us a story in 100 words. And I wrote a story, and they said it must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I wish I had a copy of it here, because I'd read it to you if I had, but it's only 100 words, and you can find it. I mean, it is all over the place. And it's a challenge to people who want to be writers, because I say to them, if you're going to be a storyteller, you can tell a story in 100 words. Not 99, not 101. Has to be exactly 100 words.
It set you up for the Twitter life, didn't it?
You've got to nowadays. I have 26,000 people follow me on Twitter, and many of them Indians, and 200,000 follow me on Facebook, and 4.5 million read my blog, and many of them Indians. They talk to me a lot about the cricket and the books and other things, and it's fun to have their company every morning. I love this country, and it's a privilege to keep coming back.
You legend, you. Sanjeev Prakash, please ask Jeffrey Archer, why did he stop writing spy thrillers like A Matter of Honor, Honor Among Thieves, and The 11 Commandments? I missed those. I've got to add on to that. There's a fair bit of espionage even in Mightier Than the Sword, about East Berlin and the wall and things like that. So there are elements in your books to date. But then, to answer this question, what would you say?
Yes, I mean, I don't want to be a one-horse pony. I want to do other things. So yes, you've got a saga. Cain and Abel was a saga. You've got now the Clifton Chronicles, 7 volumes of them. This is the 5th. That's a saga. Yes, you're right. I've done thrillers as well. I don't want to be one genre.
Bow to the king of storytelling, says Ice Cream Man K-Tens. Amazing. That's what it's all about, isn't it? You're just a storyteller.
I think that's right. I think there's a big difference between being a writer, which is what V.S. Nepal is, Salman Rushdie, they're writers, and being a storyteller, which is what I think R.K. Narayan is. I think he's a great... Mind you, to be fair, I think R.K. Narayan is both a great writer and a great storyteller. And storytellers are people who make you turn the page, make you want to read on. And they're two different worlds.
Malgudi Days, something you enjoyed?
Malgudi Days, I think, is a work of genius. Unquestionably a work of genius. It's simple. The stories are simple. But you have to turn the page and find out what happens to these sometimes quite insignificant people, but you have to find out what's happening in their lives. That's a great gift. He's a great storyteller, R.K. Narayan.
Lovely.
Great storyteller.
More pictures of Lord Jeffrey Archer coming up at HRISHIKY, Twitter as well as Facebook. It's facebook.com/radio1.mum. You can ask questions. You can react to this interview. It's also one space your comment and name to 53650. The SMS line is 53650. Messages and back at 9:40. The wonderful Lord Jeffrey Archer is in studio. We've just talked to R.K. Narayan. Remember, Mightier Than the Sword, the number one bestseller from the Clifton Chronicles, is out. You ought to go get yourself a copy. And he's at 7 p.m. today at Crossroad Kem's Corner. He's also traveling to Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad and Kolkata. Your 11th trip here?
Yes, and when I go to those cities, I'll be at Crossroad as well, so come and see me if you're there.
So,
it's the 11th trip. I love this country. I'm a bit shocked today in Mumbai because it's been raining. I've never seen rain in Mumbai. It's cool. It's never been cool in Mumbai. It's quite a change, and it's lovely. It's a very, very different when it's cool.
Let's talk about your prison years that gave rise to some great writing. Was it, there are people like Nelson Mandela who've gone for a cause, and there are people like yourself who went because of circumstances. Your years in prison, very difficult to sum up in a 5-minute piece, but talk to us about that.
Well, I wrote 3 books called The Prison Diaries, which was really me looking at people and writing what I listened to. It was an observation period, and of course it became very useful material for A Prisoner of Birth, which followed, and for short stories, A Cat of Nine Tails, that followed. So meeting people, Hrishi, and knowing people and feeling people is always an advantage for an author. In the next book, I have to admit this on air, and you're the first person I've told, in the next book, not Mightier Than the Sword, but in the one that's still to come, 9 chapters will be in Mumbai.
Wow.
There's a big Indian girl heroine, and Sebastian, who you mentioned earlier,
yes,
comes to Mumbai to try and capture her heart.
That is why you're waxing eloquent about Indian women. You've been studying them, haven't you?
They're remarkable. They make you look stupid. Mind you, that wouldn't be difficult.
Oh, I love this. And you're quite an auctioneer, do you hit the gavel hard?
Yeah, I love auctioneering. I do it for charity. I do it for last year. I did 35 auctions. I raised £4.1 million for different charities. Several of them Indian hospitals and Indian educational trusts, because the Indians in England are big charity givers. They're very generous. They hold big functions, and then they invite me to be the auctioneer. I've also gone in England to several cricket functions where we are regularly humiliated, but I've had the privilege of meeting such charming people. Last year I met I've met many times, but like very much Sunil Gavaskar, and Raul Dravid's one of my heroes, and Kumble's one of my heroes, and VVS Laxman's another. Your people. One of the interesting things about your cricket team is how interesting they are as human beings. I find Raul Dravid and VVS Laxman really wonderful to have dinner with or to be with. They're such damn good company. Of course, it's a privilege for a gnome like myself to see the great cricketers of the day, but to meet them and see that they're also charming, intelligent people is wonderful.
And you must have abiding memories of Kapil Dev's Devils, or Kapil's Devils conquering Lords in 1983.
Kapil's a great man, and again, been a very good friend. The late Nawab Patodi, who I was at Oxford with and was a dear friend, held a dinner in my honour when I went to Delhi, and Kapil came as one of the guests, which was very kind of him. It is always surprising to find out how many people have read Cain and Abel, how many people have read my books, and of course, when the great and the mighty come and also say, I've read your books as well, it's very touching. Very touching.
The Bee Gees, Paying the Price of Love. More conversation right after this song. Paying the Price of Love, the Bee Gees. Rajesh Iyer, Jeffrey Archer, oh Lord, he's live now, people. Indian women make you look stupid, and lustrous Englishman says so, Jeffrey Archer. Nice.
Makes you look stupid.
Yes.
Not all Indian men.
All Indians. Me. Vivek Nair, Cain and Abel is an all-time favorite. How is Jeffrey Archer using all his influence to make this world a better place? I imagine he's asking about your charities.
Well,
Yeah.
I enjoy my charity work. I enjoy my auctions because it allows me to meet so many interesting people. In fact, I've met the Indian cricket team because of my auctions. They keep turning up to do work for charity, which is very good of them. And I bump into them there. It's great fun. I do the best I can.
And a little birdie tells me you were an athlete in school. Tell us about that.
I had a privilege of running for Great Britain.
Wow.
But that's 100 years ago. And I wasn't quite good enough. I ran for Britain, and I ran for England, and I ran for Oxford. But I wasn't quite good enough.
And this is what, 100 meters, a
100
mile?
meters, 100
meters. What do you think of
100 yards.
Usain Bolt? Work of genius, isn't he?
Unbelievable. I mean, that is a God-given talent. But he works very hard as well. You can't get to the top of anything. You want to be a ballet dancer, you want to be an opera singer, you want to play the violin, you want to write a book, you want to be the best at the 100 meters. You've got to have the God-given talent, but you also got to work very hard indeed.
I'm so glad that you have this deep-rooted admiration for exemplary human beings who are Indian. And you were talking about Anil Kumble, and you're meeting him.
Yes, I
that.
had the privilege of meeting him at an airport. I wanted to tell him, I wanted to meet him because he's a great slow bowler and a great cricketer and a great man. But I wanted to tell him that his behaviour in Australia was exemplary. While the Australians were behaving like a bunch of thugs on the pitch, Kumble remained a gentleman at all times, and I wanted him to know that the rest of the world had noticed that he had behaved over the Habashan incident, behaved with such dignity. So when I met him, he stopped immediately, got his phone out and phoned his wife and said, "I've got Jeffrey Archer with me." And it turned out that his wife, like Sachin Tendulkar's wife, great readers of my books, so I was able to chat to her and thank her, and indeed tell her how proud I was of her husband behaving so well.
You did say off the mic that you marveled at the fact that I was on air for 5 hours at a stretch.
Madness.
How many hours at a stretch can you do in front of your laptop or your how do you write?
Real concentration. I handwrite. I do 6 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock, as I did this morning. I got up at 6 and wrote until 8. I will then do, when I'm at my writing desk in my home in Mallorca, I will do 6 to 8, 10 to 12, 2 to 4, 6 to 8, bed at 9:30, up at 5:30. But there's stretches, Richie, of 2 hours. I couldn't do 5 hours. I'd be exhausted. By the end of 2 hours of writing, I need a rest. So I'm amazed you can do 5. You don't do it very well, but at least you do 5 hours.
Last leg of conversation with the legend himself. We're going to say bye-bye to him on that note. Just a moment. Bruce Springsteen, Lonesome Day. Last opportunity to ask questions. It's one space, your question and name to 53650, the SMS line, at HRISHIKAY, Twitter, Facebook, and facebook.com/radio1.mo. Lonesome Day, Bruce Springsteen. He is tonight at 7 p.m. at Crossroad Kemp's Corner. Please go, get your autographed copy. Hang with Lord Jeffrey Archer. He's not as intimidating as he sounds.
Yes, I am.
And he's traveling to Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Kolkata. Wonderful. Now, your favoritist book written by somebody else?
It's always difficult to pick one, but I would say Stefan Zweig, Beware of Pity, is a masterpiece.
I haven't even read it. Now
No,
you'll
it's
say
a
ignoramus.
masterpiece. You get it today. No, I didn't read it. An Indian lady told me about it 5 years ago.
Wow.
At a dinner party. She reads one book a week. And I said, well, if you read one book a week, tell me your favorite. And that was her favorite. Cain and Abel was number 2, which was very touching. And I have to say, Mughal Days is a work of genius. R.K. Narayan has that ability. The great man had the ability of being a great writer and a great storyteller. A rare combination.
Alistair D'Souza, can you ask Jeffrey Archer what inspired him to start writing books? Answer that.
I had to leave the House of Commons in tremendous debt. I was in large debt, couldn't get a job. Sat down and wrote my first book, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, which wasn't a great success. The takeoff when the world changed was Cain and Abel. That sold 1 million copies in the first week and has now sold 37,700,000 copies. Many of them in India, but you haven't paid for them yet.
Ankit Khandelwal, what a start to the day with Jeffrey Archer. Awesome. As the Crow Flies is my all-time favorite. And you said your wife's too?
Yes, my wife's favorite is As the Crow Flies. So she joins you in that. I'm not sure I agree with her. The Indian people, I suppose that's true worldwide, though I'm very sentimental about Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, because it was the first thing I did. But I think the Clifton Chronicles have been my biggest challenge, and the critics are now being very, very generous about them. So I would say, if you've never read me, start with the Clifton Chronicles and go through there. But don't miss Cain and Abel.
Okay, Kavita. Hey, Lord Archer, just so you know, you're on India's foremost radio show with everyone's favorite radio presenter. Somebody's offended you said nasty things to
then
me.
you're a desperate country. You're a desperate... If this is the foremost radio show and this is the foremost radio presenter, you've got problems.
Well, you just said that it was most challenging to write the Clifton Chronicles, but Divya says, last question actually, of all your books, which one is the closest to your heart? Which is your own writing?
I think probably... Gosh, that's a difficult question, but Paths of Glory, the story of Mallory trying to conquer Everest, taken from real life and turned into a novel, may be the greatest challenge and dearest to my heart of anything I've ever written.
Jeffrey Archer, what an honor and privilege. Thank you for rolling by.
Thank you, and I have to say it was not an honor and a privilege to be with the leading radio host in India.
I will take that with copious amounts of salt, not a pinch. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
You too.